What's up, everyone? Kevin here from Skywatcher. Welcome to another episode of the What's Up Webcast. We do this every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. We cover everything from what's up in the sky to equipment to helpful tips and tricks. And of course, at the end of the month, we have a special guest on to talk about their specialty in the field of astronomy. It is the end of January 2025, probably the longest month I have ever lived. And that's because we have 5 weeks in this month. But it's over, and February starts tomorrow, and it's crazy how fast it's already going. So anyway, if you like what you see here on our channel, as every typical YouTube person will tell you, like and subscribe. Let us know we're doing a good job. And then if you want to support our channel a little bit more, you can head over to skywatch.threadless.com. We have all kinds of fun, science-y swag stuff over there. You can pick all that up. There's even shoes. And of course, if you want to support us more, you can just buy products from us too. We sell cool telescopes. So anyway, that's what we do here at Skywatcher. But today we have a special guest on. Her name is Dr. Erika Hamden. She's joining us from the University of Arizona. I had the pleasure of meeting Erika about a year ago. We were on a panel at the Arizona Science Center. She's a very awesome person to have. So we're just going to jump right into it. I'm going to bring Erika out, and when the computer wants to listen, hold on. Poof! There's Erika. Good morning. So everyone, this is Dr. Erika Hamden. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I know you've got a very busy schedule with everything going on. And hold on, I did not do this right. There we go. Now you can see her. That was my fault. So,
Hello.
let me see if I can make this full screen because you don't need to see my face. Boom. There we go. There's all of us right there. Okay. Sorry about that. Too much going on. Yes, now we can see her. I pressed the wrong button. So Erika, every person I have on, we just ask the same question, and that's, you have an extensive title for what you do, and I know there's a lot of cool stuff to cover, but, all of us nerds and telescope people, we always start somewhere where that little spark goes off in your head where it's like, wow, space is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm curious where yours got started and how you've gotten to where you are today.
So I'm very lucky because I've been into space for just like my entire life, basically. Like I was in grade school and my mom said that I remember I was like hanging around in the house and my mom was making dinner and she always had the news on and this news segment came on about scientists wanted to come up with a new name for the Big Bang. And my mom was like, "Oh, you should submit a name." And I was like, "I don't know what that is." And she was making dinner, so she was like, "Go look it up." And it was the 80s. So I looked it up in our encyclopedia, the like physical book. And I remember reading about the Big Bang, and then I like read all these other entries about space and the universe and like our solar system. And then the encyclopedia had the last like volume was an atlas, which like nobody has atlases anymore, but the last pages of the atlas was like a map of the solar system and then a map of our galaxy and then a map of the known universe. And I like remember looking at the map of the known universe and being like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I think I was like 7 or 8 years old. I like knew how to read, I think maybe second grade. And I was just like super into space from that point onward. And I think I had known about it like sort of in a abstract way, like I knew that you could be an astronaut and go to space as like a very little kid, but the idea that you could like study space, I could like help make the map of the known universe like bigger, that was just like so exciting. So I was into it from then on. Like people that I know from growing up, when they hear that I'm an astrophysicist now, they're like, "Oh, you did it." It's like really sweet. So yeah, I just have always like I've always loved it. I still feel that sense of like kind of wonder. And I'm really lucky that I get to like do my childhood dream as my job.
It is pretty neat when you can accomplish something. And I guess what I like about astronomy, maybe over other sciences, is, and or even space, is it's so obtainable when you just start doing a little bit of digging.
Yeah.
Like you could get a telescope for not much, or a pair of binoculars, and you can start at least going out in the backyard and kind of discovering the
Yeah.
cosmos for yourself. Where if it's, chemistry or biology, it
Yes.
takes a lot more to, you can't really have a casual hobby of,
A
you
casual
know,
clinical trial.
yes. So, um,
Um, yeah, the like amazing thing about astronomy actually is, I mean, you can buy cheap binoculars, but you can just go outside and like do it
mhm.
the way the ancient Greeks did and like just look at the sky with your eyes. And I go outside in my backyard in Tucson basically every day. I have a hot tub, and as part of my like sleep routine, I go out in the hot tub at 8:30 p.m. and turn all the lights in the house off and just like look up at the sky. I call it hot tub astronomy. But it's kind
There's
of
a
a,
whole talk show right there.
I know. It's like I should be my podcast would be hot tub astronomy, and I just broadcast at 8:30 from the hot tub.
You have like one drink that you review like for that particular. We're having a martini today, so it's just
Yeah, there's no visuals because it's just in the dark, but like it's a Tucson is great as a dark sky, a dark-ish sky location. For a city, it's
mm-hmm.
good, but you just going out every night and seeing how things change. Like I've been watching Mars moving and like all the planets are out, so that it's been a really nice time, but it gives you it's given me this really intense appreciation for how much you can actually kind of see how much things are changing. And that's been really cool because like up until a couple of years ago, I didn't spend that much time outside at night, but actually now I do it every day, and it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's a good way to decompress, especially with all the noise of the world and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and even work where you're always on a screen. It's nice to just kind of go out. And
Yes.
I think one of my favorite things of going to like star parties or something like it, it's very similar. It's like, what amazing things do you see in the telescope? It's like, the best time is just sitting in a chair looking up and looking at like the Milky Way go across the sky. And
Yeah.
something about just being simple is kind of refreshing, where it's not all this complicated optics. I mean, those are all fun, and I know we'll get to that because you like complicated optics and stuff like that. But there's something refreshing about just being able to unplug and just appreciate what your eyes will show, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I have some questions for you. They're popping up quickly,
Okay.
actually. So you are a doctorate. You're at University of Arizona. What are your duties and responsibilities with that position?
Oh boy. Okay. So so my official title is I'm an associate professor of astrophysics at the Stewart Observatory, which is like our name for the Department of Astronomy here. And then I'm also the director of the University of Arizona Space Institute. So that means I basically like do a lot of different things. As a faculty member, I teach classes. I usually teach the like intro astronomy class that's for non-major undergrads, which is really fun because then I get to cover like all the fun, cool topics and like how the universe works. And it's not a ton of like math basically because it's designed for people who maybe don't have like a calculus background. It's their science requirement. Um, Sometimes I teach more advanced classes, but a lot of times I'm just teaching that intro class. And then I have a bunch of students that I mentor, like undergrads that do research for me, grad students, postdocs. And as part of that, I have all these different projects going on in the lab. Like I do technology development for sensors, like the photosensitive part of the telescope that actually captures the image. It's very similar to what's in your cell phone, silicon based, but slightly different. So I have those projects. I have telescope projects, like a few different ones that are in various stages of, very early formulation phase versus ones that we're currently building. And then I have some other projects that use like ground-based telescopes and data from existing kind of facilities. And then there's a bunch of other like administrative stuff that faculty members do. Like you're on the admissions committees, you're on other committees, you like help with the governance of the university and all the like management stuff, which is not my favorite, but that's how life is. And then as director of the Space Institute, so the Space Institute is kind of this like institute at the university that exists between departments. So we work with all faculty that are doing space sciences across the university. So not just astronomy, but planetary science, earth science, heliophysics, like all space related stuff, a little bit of like human space exploration. And as director, I try to like help facilitate whatever people are doing. So we have a seed grant program where if somebody has a project idea and they want to propose it to a funder like NASA or a private foundation, we can help them develop the proposal, give them support for that. We also manage a couple of buildings. So I'm like sitting in one of the buildings that we run that's called the Applied Research Building. So this building has clean rooms, mission integration spaces. So you can propose your mission, build it here, test it. We have a thermal vac chamber that mimics the vacuum of outer space and the temperatures. A bunch of other test systems. And then we have a mission operations center. So then you can propose your mission, build it, test it. Someone else has to send it into space, and then you can talk to it from here. So there's a lot of people that like help support the buildings and people that help with the proposal side of things. And so that's a really fun part of my job. I took over as director in 2023, so it's been a few years now, which is kind of an amazing thing to say. Um, but I just like I love space. I like putting things in space. And so it's really fun to help other people get to do that and to kind of support the overall goal of the university of just like doing great work in space.
Mm-hmm. Because, like you said earlier, you are expanding that map of the universe, which
Yeah.
I think is actually a really cool way of, for someone so young at that time, and you're now helping pave the path. And, it's kind of like, 1600s where it's like, we're going to go discover the
Yeah.
new world or something like
There be
that. And
dragons.
yeah. Have to head to Mordor and through Hobbiton and all that. Um, but no, it's cool that you're through your passion and stuff like that, you've been able to put yourself in positions that actually help achieve those goals in one way or another, whether it's directly or roundabout, or even helping the next generation continue carry that torch is pretty neat. So another question here. When did you decide to make astrophysics your career?
Um, I mean, sort of as a kid, I knew that I really liked space. I think I'm lucky because I have a certain amount of like obliviousness to things. So I like kind of just like floated along through grade school. I grew up in New Jersey and went to public school, and I like was like, okay, I'll just take all these math classes. I'll like do all this stuff, and I was really good at it. And so I never had, and I have older sisters, and my older sisters are also very smart and they do other things. But when I was going through school, like all the teachers knew our family because they'd had my older sisters. And so I never had a teacher that was like, oh, maybe you're not going to be good at this, because they had already experienced the rest of the family. And so I like never
Oh, you're a Hamden, so to
exactly. That was
say.
like literally. And for a while, some of my cousins lived in the town, and I remember my one of my cousins was like, he was like, I have to tell the teachers that just because my last name is Hamden does not mean I'm as smart as as the rest of you. It was very funny. But so I never, a lot of people, describe to me experiences, especially in like K through 12, where a teacher says like, oh, I don't think you can do this. And I feel like I was very fortunate that I never had that experience. And I was mostly oblivious. So even if people were kind of like directing me some other way, I just ignored it because I was like, I want to do this. Like, why are you talking to me? So I had a very strong sense of my own like interests. And then I got to college. I actually went to MIT for initially, and then I dropped out in the first semester. The like Monday after Thanksgiving break, I was like, I don't want to do this, and I kind of had to like rethink about like what was I trying to do, and that was a really helpful experience. Like at the time, it was devastating because a lot of my kind of sense of self had been about academic achievement. And then I was like, oh no, I'm a college dropout, and not the like good type that is doing a company. It's just like the bad type that didn't make it. And so I had to figure out like, what do I actually care about and why do I do things? And then when I went back to college, um, I had a much stronger sense of like, I want to have a good time. Like I want to enjoy what I am doing in the moment and not be like, oh, 5 years from now when I have some job, then I'll be fulfilled. I felt like I wanted to be fulfilled like right then. And um I took a bunch of classes to just kind of see maybe there's some other subject that I like, because like MIT is such a science heavy place. And I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to take a religion class. I'm going to take like a history class and other stuff. And then I realized like, oh, I really miss physics and astronomy. And so then that's what I majored in. And And then I like again I was like, okay, do I want to go straight to grad school? That's what if you're in a university environment, all of your professors have been to grad school, and so if you ask them what should I do, they're like, do what I did, which isn't always the best advice for people. So I took a year off after college and went to cooking school and then worked as a chef for like 6 months. And that was my other career path because I really like food and eating and cooking. Um, and it was a good, very hard job. It was really a good experience. I learned a lot. And then at the end of that, I was like, I miss using my brain for things. The only time that I found it interesting was like on Saturday nights when we were totally slammed. And the restaurant was really good, and I'm still friends with the chef. Um, but I knew that I needed to do something like more um, complicated every day. So then I like went to grad school, was there for 7 years, and kind of now have been on the path for quite a long time.
I guess that's I don't know how many younger people we get on here, like high school level, um, but it's is good to know because I think at least coming from my generation too, is I think we're probably pretty close on the generational stuff as well. And I'm stuck on a cable. There we go. Um, is that when I was in school, you were told, oh, you finish high school, then you go to college, and it's like a formula where A
Yeah.
plus B equals C, and if you do this, you're okay. And I think a lot of our generation now is probably starting to see that that's not exactly what that's supposed to be like,
Yeah.
but it's okay to not really know where you want to land or have that idea when you're like 18. It's like, I have a vision of what would be cool, but maybe that's not going to be it.
Yeah.
And that it's okay to maybe stop and recalibrate and, hey, this isn't what I thought, and adjust your course to meet what you want to do. And like you said, where you have some of the professors that are like, well, if you just do what I do, it's like, oh, well, then I would own a house and all these other things that I was
Yeah.
also told I would get. And it just
Yes.
doesn't work that way anymore. And I feel like that's slowly starting to catch up to the modern world, where
Yeah.
it is okay to maybe not have it fully figured out at
Yeah.
that point. So,
And I think it's important also that like there it's never too late for something. Like for almost everything you can start it at some other time. And there's a lot of different ways into different careers or different trajectories. And there isn't ever like one right path. Like all the paths are right. It's a
mm-hmm.
quantum mechanical view of life.
Yes, there's a lot of strings that we could pull to make this work, isn't it? Um, what this is another question. Let's see. You actually answered one. What you were doing before you became a professor. You impromptu did that. So check. Um, let's see. Do you have a? So I know and this comes up a lot because we're a telescope company. A lot of us are all into astronomy, from like in the field using a telescope all the time. But I've noticed, because I have other friends who are at U of A as well and other universities that are kind of similar, to where they love space, but you kind of approach it, rather than I'm out as an astronomer every night looking at the sky, you're approaching it from we're building these big things to explore further. Um, but a question here is, do you have a favorite astronomer from history, ancient or modern, or someone like that, since you kind of bridge that gap where...
Um, so this is a tough one. So, I feel like I'm never pronouncing his name correctly. So I am a huge fan of Aristarchus
Mm,
of Samos, um, and his like, what if the sun was the center of everything? Like I like how wacky he was for his time. I feel like that's like how a scientist should be. And um, it's interesting to me. I think he's a good example of like how, so I guess for people that are not mega fans of him, he is like, it's like the first recording of a heliocentric model where the sun is at the center of the universe and the earth goes around it. And he like also had there was a different Greek philosopher who had theory that the sun, like stars in the sky were the same as the sun, but they were just really far from us. Um, Anaxagoras is that guy. I also don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but and Aristarchus was like, oh, I think that seems good too. And I just feel like he was a really interesting character to have such a um, unusual view, and but also it was like his theories were so straightforward. He was like, the sun is really big, so shouldn't that be at the center? Like
Mm-hmm.
it what there wasn't but so I like that. I feel like that's like a quintessential scientist thing to be like, I'm gonna point out this obvious thing. I'm like, shouldn't we just follow that?
Yeah, seems it's like Occam's razor, where it's like simplest explanations tends to be the right one,
Yeah.
and it. I guess that's what's kind of cool about scientists is when you really kind of get down to the nitty gritty. It's like your whole job is to go completely against the grain of
Yeah.
what a lot of people, and you have to push that till that narrative becomes like, oh, they were right, and
Yeah.
you know, at the beginning of every disaster movie is a bunch of scientists being ignored. It's like, yeah, we kind of mentioned that, but
Yeah.
thanks. so so
So
um
I also like, I think it's impressive, and this is true for more than just ancient Greek astronomers, but it's like impressive how close people can get to, what we now would say is like a correct depiction of reality, with just like only the most limited tools. And I think that it's really cool to think about that, and I feel like I like it because it's like a point of like human like creativity, and you can, if you're like really thinking about something, you can do a lot. um
mhm.
and yeah, and
it
I just like
it
that.
is
I feel like we're so down on humans all the time, and like I think everything is terrible. I'm also an optimist, and so that's one
yeah.
of the things where I'm like, this
Well,
guy
I know you've talked to many students, probably of all different ages, and you know, you talk to people and they kind of feel like, well, I'm not, I don't have a degree, I don't have this, I'm not at some distinguished university, but it's like, you know, even I'm sure you've seen it with students, I've seen it with like elementary school kids where, you know, they don't really have the basis of what we're talking about, but just from their mental and visual observations of something, they kind of, and obviously we would probably know the answer already because we've dealt with it, but for someone who's not in the field that comes to this idea or conclusion just off their own basic observations and to get really close to the actual target is impressive. And I think a lot of people, I know you mentioned before we got on here that you like promoting like critical thinking and stuff like that,
yeah,
but it is nice to see students where it's like you don't have to be a scientist to be like, oh, well, I was out looking at this, or like, why is the sky blue is a good example of that. Where it's like, oh, well, I think it does this, this, and this with these particles, and it scatters light, and it's like, that's a pretty good observation. That's
yeah.
probably pretty darn close, and you kind of find that, and maybe this is just how our society is, and obviously in your position, the questions that we're asking have gotten immensely more complicated as time has gone on. But a lot of those large questions have to start with something very basic as the question, where
Yeah.
it's like, hey, we want to build this space telescope, and we're going to look really far away, and the light from really far away things is usually red. So maybe we should use gold on the mirror to reflect it rather than this. And it's, you know, it siphons down to this little tiny point where it's like, huh, we learned about that. And then, but it's cool to see people, especially young people, just use their basic observation skills. It's like, that's science
Yeah.
right there, is you asking a question and wanting to understand why. And that's
I mean,
it.
I think every human is a like is innately a scientist, and I've been thinking a lot about how do you teach critical thinking in a 90-second Instagram video, and but one of the things I'm going to tell people is like, oh, you just have to channel your inner like kindergartner, where your question for everything should be, yeah, but why?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, but why? And like eventually you have to like drill down to the actual basis of something. But I think, people innately want to know why. That's why kindergartners ask that question over and over again. We like want to know about the world around us, and we want to like know what's over the hill and what's beyond the horizon and like what's under this rock. And we are so curious. And I think that, the science is just a way to like channel that into a more like productive kind of flow of curiosity. But I think everybody can do it. And in some sense, I think everybody wants to do it. Like people who brand themselves as like skeptics of something, it's usually, I think of those people as like failed scientists where they didn't have the right training in how to distinguish like what is real and what isn't, and they want to apply this framework that leads them in the wrong direction, but they're still trying to apply it. It's just that they like don't have all of the tools. And but I think that there are certainly like people that operate in bad faith, but I think there's a huge chunk of people that like given better tools, they do better.
Do you feel, I mean, I see this going to schools and stuff like that. One of my favorite things to do is break the jock, is what I call it, when I go to high schools with telescopes, is you go and do these groups and these kids reluctantly come because they're required for the grade. And then usually it's the group of the football players and stuff like that show up. And there's always one in there that loves what we're doing, but it's like culturally they've been kind of programmed to be like, oh, well, you shouldn't be asking those questions, and get with the program and be cool, and don't go against the grain, and don't. And I see it culturally now where it's like you're kind of just beaten out of the submission to where you're kind of trained not to ask the question anymore. And it's just, don't be curious, just work with what we've got.
Yeah.
But when they get away from that crew, there'll be that one, it's usually a jock is what I found. There's that one guy who comes out and he's like, this is really cool. Can you tell me about this and about that? And it seems like right now where we are, you're not encouraged to be curious anymore. You're not encouraged to, and maybe that's through schooling. Maybe that's just, there's an abundance of different reasons why, but
yeah.
I feel like and you being a professional educator, and I guess me being more on an amateurish level, you need to get back to, it's okay to ask questions.
Yeah.
And there are stupid questions out there, but it's okay. Like if you stumble on your knees because you asked something or it didn't work out, it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah.
It's even better to be like, I don't know. Ask the question and let's figure it out. Like encourage that growth rather than just being like, well, I don't know, so I'm going to make something up. It's like, yeah, that doesn't work. So
yeah, it's I think that kind of stuff is really important to like kind of model against, of like, it's okay to be like, oh, I don't know this, but we can figure it out, or we can't figure it out and we have to embark on a whole lifetime of experimentation to figure it out. But that it's really fine to just be like, oh, I'm curious about this. And yeah, it's always, I feel like there's, just as people are always curious, there are always people who don't want curiosity because it is an element of the unknown.
Yeah. We get scared of, it's like being scared of the dark. It's like, oh, there's a monster. There's no monster. You just can't see it. Yeah. It's just the dark. So not a big deal. So, let's see. Actually, one of the things I've told my kids before, they're little, they're like 8 and 4, and it's like, it's an astronomer's job essentially to find the light in the dark. And that's what we do. We look for these little pinpoints of light, and it's like, oh, it's dark and scary. It's like, yeah, but the more you look, you realize there's a lot more light out there than there is dark. So it's just different shades and different colors, and it approaches all different ways. So, let's see. I know there's a bunch of people who are curious about all kinds of stuff. What's your favorite part of your job, and maybe what's the least favorite part of your job?
So my favorite, that's tough. My favorite part of my job is actually writing proposals for new projects, and like I like coming up with new ideas. I think proposal writing is really a creative kind of endeavor. Most people hate writing proposals because most of the time they don't get picked and you don't get whatever you're trying to do. But I really like it because I feel like it's like like it's kind of like formative, and I figure things out as I'm working on it. And so I find that to be really fun and like creative experience. Of course, I've been turned down so many times, so you get used to that. Um, Probably the least favorite part of my job is I don't, let's see, how do I want to phrase this? So like everything is made up. The only things that you cannot violate are like the laws of physics, but everything else is just like a construct of, humans, and it's all made up. And so I don't like when I run into mostly like administrative things and I'm like, this is just a made up rule. I don't want to follow this. This isn't
Mm-hmm.
real. And like we live in a society, so I have to follow some of the made up rules, but a lot of times that's what is very annoying, where I'm like, why are you pretending that this is an obstacle? It's not real.
Yeah, I might upset people with this one, maybe not. That's how I kind of feel about the stock market, where I think it's really funny where people are like, it's crashing and the economy's going down. It's like, but we made it.
Yeah, it's
Like
all
we made the thing. We should control it. And I that's a very, very, very basic approach to it. There's people who would know more than I do. It is weird to me where you have these constructs and it's like, well, we can't do that.
because the construct will be upset, but it's like it's just made up.
Yeah. We have a YouTuber that we've worked with before. His name's Dylan O'Donnell, and his tagline for everything is everything's meaningless and we're all gonna die. Like,
So I'm like, I need to watch his YouTube channel
yeah.
because that is my like phrase that I say, which I've like said to a bunch of my students in the last, or I mean, over years is one day the sun will engulf the earth and none of this matters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm a nihilist and I'm like, yeah, this will all be destroyed in the grand scheme of things. Like all of it is pointless, except for the stuff that you make that gets far enough away from the sun that it won't be destroyed. So that
Yeah.
stuff will matter. But everything else, it's like, meh.
That's such a great thing when you boil it down. It's like, so what's the point? Get as far away from here as possible. That's the point. That is the name of the game. So get a
And
really
like,
big paddle and start rowing. So,
we don't even have that much time really, because in like 500 million years, the sun will be hot enough that it will boil the Earth's oceans. And so we like actually got to get out of here pretty soon.
yeah, it's a really good way to start a metal album, though, if any metalheads are watching this. So,
Feel free to sample that.
yeah, science is wicked when you really start getting into it because it doesn't care if we're here or not. It's just like, oh, we asked a really scary question. We found the really scary answer. So, um, let's see.
Happy Friday, everyone.
Yeah, happy Friday.
The sun will destroy everything that you built.
You're welcome. So enjoy that coffee. So, were your parents supportive of your education path? So,
Oh yeah, my parents were super supportive. They're funny because they both, like, my dad is a physics professor in New Jersey. A lot of professors have kids that become professors. My mom was a high school biology teacher before she was a stay-at-home mom. So they're very like science people, but they always pushed us to do really well in school, but there was no like direction exactly. Like my sisters have like a bunch of different careers, and I'm the only one that became like a scientist. But they were super supportive of just like education, and when we were little kids, my mom told me a story of like her and my dad talking, and he's a professor at a university in New Jersey that's like a state school, and that's where my mom went to college, and he went to a similar school in New Jersey. And so he was like, oh, well, when the kids are old enough, they should all go to Montclair State. And my mom was like, what if they're smart? Like, they should go anywhere. So even then, they were like, oh, we just want you to go to the best possible school. And when I was applying for school, for college, I remember, so I've also always wanted to be an astronaut. And so far, that hasn't worked out for me. But a lot of astronauts come from the military, or they go through the military academies. And I talked to my parents about applying to like the Air Force Academy, or two of my mom's brothers went to the Naval Academy. So I was like thinking about that. And both of my parents were like, that was the only thing that they really said no to. They were like, you have to go to the most academically rigorous school that you can get into. And even though the military academies do give you a good education, it's just like kind of in a different it's a different category than going to like Harvard, where I ended up getting my degree, or MIT or like Caltech. Um, and so their only thing was like, no, you have to go to the best school you can get into. And if it is one of those places, then that's where you're going to go. But if you get into like an Ivy League or somewhere where you can really like do anything, then that's what you have to do. So they were supportive. They had a little bit of like the immigrant parent mindset of like, why isn't this 100? But they also, I mean, it was nice, like it was the 80s and the 90s, so there was definitely more of like a hands-off kind of vibe. And like I remember spending a lot of time like daydreaming, and I was like always reading books. I always had like, we'd go to like family functions, or like my dad had a sister that lived in Orlando, and we would go to Disney. It's like we visit her and then go to Disney World. And I remember I always had a book with me during the lines, and like all of my extended family, they like remember me as this like dreamy kid who's like always reading something. And so everyone was, it was a really like supportive family, and everyone is still really proud of me. And especially like when I dropped out of MIT, like my parents had to come pick me up, and like I was really worried like, oh, they're not going to love me, but they just wanted me to be happy.
Mm-hmm. That's a pretty solid foundation. I'm sure the holidays are amazing in your
It's
family.
very there, it's very crazy. Like there's like my whole extended family, there's lots of kids. Everyone is like extremely opinionated, and views themselves as the center of the universe. So it ends up being very hilarious. They're
the
great.
white the white elephants are crazy in this family.
I like could not do anything without them. So I'm very
Yeah.
grateful.
um, this is a good one. I'd be curious to know your thought on it. What external issues would you like removed from affecting astronomy?
Oh boy, a great question. So like the primary external issue. Okay, so there's two that I'll say. The first is maybe very obvious, but like give us more money to do stuff. Most of astronomy is funded through federal grants and like through NASA or the National Science Foundation. There's some private foundations, but the like level of support is not the same. And more money for astronomy actually has a lot of benefits for people's lives. Like people feel like astronomy is this very esoteric subject, and like why does it matter to a regular person, like if we know how what happens in distant galaxies. But I would say like, the theory of general relativity is one that I like to harp on, that Einstein came up with it because he wanted to explain how the universe worked, and he wanted to be able to explain certain things that we were seeing in space, like the orbit of Mercury wasn't well explained by Newtonian gravity. And so he came up with this whole theory that like broke physics of like how space-time actually works. The theory of relativity is the only reason that GPS works correctly. If we didn't understand the like nature of space-time, then all of your GPS calculations would be off by like something like 2 miles a day, and every day would get worse. Like because the timing involved, that you need very precise timing, and you need to actually do general relativistic calculations. So there's a lot of examples like that where you're doing something because you just want to know how the universe works. You just want to understand like how did our galaxy get here? How did our planet get here? Those are going to have like spin-off technologies, but also just like follow-on effects that you can't predict, that end up becoming foundational to other stuff. Like if we can figure out exactly like why does our planet have water? Why does it have life? What are the characteristics required for other planets to have life? Then we can much more systematically look for other planets that should be like ours, and then see like, oh, maybe there's life on those planets. If we understand deeply the nature of space-time, maybe we can figure out a way past the speed of light as a limit on like motion in the universe, and or we can find some like interesting energy source or something. So I feel like there's a lot of possibility that right now is in the realm of like almost sci-fi, but it's not that far away if we put in the money and the time and the people to like dig into all this like weird stuff. Um, the second thing for astronomy is that I would say everyone needs to turn their stupid outdoor lights off. The light pollution is an interesting pollution because if everyone turned the lights off, it would be over. Like it's actually very easy to solve. It's not like carbon in the atmosphere or like microplastics in everything. Like you just shut off the lights and that's it. It's over. Um, but I think like the ability to look at the night sky is a human right. and one that we're losing. And right now we're in a situation where like there's light pollution from stuff on the ground, but as more and more satellites get put up, then you'll have like satellite pollution almost. And that is much harder to deal with than just turning off a bunch of lights. So those are probably my two things. Money, outdoor lighting.
You'd save a lot of money if you shut some of the lights off. So just saying. So, but yeah, I do the Grand Canyon Star Party every year. It's my favorite event, and it's open to the public, and there's so many people who come to it. We're like, I've never seen the sky like this.
Yeah.
It's like we could all have this kind of sky if we made just a little change
Every day, all the time. Like
Yeah.
it's not like the Milky Way comes out only for special occasions. It's always there.
Yeah. It's only that weird uncle that shows up on Christmas, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, but no, what I love about it is I've had people at any event, but particularly the dark sky events where they finally get to see the Milky Way and the sky is covered in stars. I've met people from completely different walks of life, completely different perspectives on the way the world should be. And when you put people in the dark and they just start talking, it's like you gave them like a blanket, where it's a warm comfort blanket where they can kind of let the guard down a little bit.
Yeah.
But within like 10 or 20 minutes, they're talking about some really profound topics.
Yeah.
And again, different, political, religious, whatever. It's like that all melts away, and you get down to that really deep, basic human. I just want to understand how we fit in the whole thing. And that's what I like about astronomy. And that conversation, I feel like, is what we really need. But we can't have it because we're shut off now from the foundation of all of that. And if we just turn the lights off, it's like, whoa, all that was hiding. It's like, yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when you look at space, I think it really makes everybody feel like a grain of sand on a beach, like you're insignificant. And it's much easier to kind of let your guard down about other things when you have that feeling. And I think that part of why I'm an optimist is that I think we have way more in common than we act like we do. And like, certainly there are like people in society that don't want to make things better, but the number of people that do want to make things better and that actually have interests that are extremely well aligned, but they don't realize it, is way, 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 way bigger. You just have to realize it. So it's nice, like, well, if we could just get everybody to do star parties, we could really start something.
Yeah, I think it gives you a level of humility. That's my favorite thing about it, is it's like, oh, we thought we were the center of the universe, and we're not even close.
Yeah,
and
we're
it
like
puts you in perspective,
so
where it's just like, wow, everything I'm arguing, being this keyboard warrior about, nothing matters. It's everything is meaningless, and we're all gonna die. It all boils down.
Yeah, I feel like I wanna like nothing matters. And so to me, the way I interpret that is that the only thing that matters is like what is immediately in front of you and like the people that you're around. Because like there isn't anything longer. There's nothing like after. It's just like what's here right now.
There's not really an end goal to it.
Yeah. There's no payoff.
Enjoy it. That is the goal. Enjoy the ride. So let's see. What do you think is the most important space initiatives currently?
Oh boy. So I think if I put on my like idealist hat, the most important is getting like people back to the moon and beyond that, like figuring out how to get out of low Earth orbit. I think that's like from a human race standpoint in the long run, that's really important. As I said earlier, that's the only thing that matters. I think our kind of never-ending search for other places like Earth is really important, and I hope will be like transformative when we find a place like Earth that has life on it, which I think it's only a matter of time. It's not a matter of like if it exists. I think it does. I think that will be hopefully an opportunity for humanity to do some soul searching of like,
Yeah.
there are other beings that we can, other places that have had life, and like we're not special. And I mean, when I said there are other beings, like there are smart beings on the surface of the earth. We just like make a choice not to acknowledge them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think hopefully it will make us reconsider our um, behavior. I
Yeah.
don't know. Or we'll end up like the aliens from Independence Day.
Destroy all of it.
Yeah.
This one is a good one for you particularly. Would love to know your opinion on social media has effects on astronomy. So.
So that's interesting. Like my social media is all about mostly just talking about space and physics and a little bit of general science, but it's really just like space. And I find it's fun to be able to connect with people who really care about it and maybe don't have like the formal training or didn't have the option to have the formal training, and they can learn something from me. And so I really like that. Like it makes it a lot more kind of accessible for everybody. I think there's like a downside, which is the algorithm would probably never show me like people who use space in like a misinformation way. Although there was like recently there was like a, I think it was the BBC, which really they should know better than this, but talking about the planetary alignment, and it like in the video it's like, oh, it's claimed to be once in every 396 billion years. And I'm like, why are you repeating this, first of all? And I couldn't find any other source for that number other than this BBC video. And it's like, if you apply even basic critical thinking, like the universe is only 13 billion years old. The solar system only lasts 10 billion years. So like, how is this alignment once in every 300 and something billion years? Like, just like,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so that kind of stuff, like the information can spread and the disinformation can also spread. So there's like,
Yeah.
it's the two sides to everything. But I think the like social media is, I don't think it has a net negative or positive. Like it is just a different way of conveying information. Like when books first became popular, people were like, books are bad because you won't have to memorize anything, and like no one's gonna know anything. And there's always this feeling of like, oh, the new medium is bad. And I think you just have to figure out how to work within the medium. Um, but I think the connections that you can make are really powerful. And so that's kind of the stuff that I like to focus on, that like I can get a question from some random person in India who I would never ever be able to talk to, and then I can answer it, and like that's a connection that even 15 years ago was not possible.
Yeah. No, the internet's a awfully powerful tool in both ways. So.
Yeah.
Um, what are your thoughts about Planet Nine? Are you involved in any search for stuff like that?
So I'm not involved in any search. So there's a few versions of Planet Nine. There's like there is some evidence, which I haven't read up on this in probably 5 years, so I'd have to see, for the orbits of like very distant trans-Neptunian objects. So objects in the outer solar system, like things that could become comets or asteroids, but they're like very far from the sun. Some of the orbits seemed like they indicated a larger body that's out beyond Neptune. But as far as I know, we've never found it. There was actually very dedicated observing on places like Keck, like big telescopes, to kind of look in to see where this object might be. Um, our solar system, the like, you know, Neptune inward solar system, is like a finely balanced machine. Like there have been these like stories, or like people talk about planets that come into the inner solar system and like leave, and that's like there's movies about stuff like that. And those obviously cannot exist, because then they would have already disrupted the solar system, so we wouldn't be here. But things like some object that's like way far out that we just can't find, part of me is like, okay, the orbits are an interesting clue, but you have to find the thing. And
Mm-hmm.
there can be like in all of science, there can be other explanations and you just might not have it. And so you have like, you can't be like, well, there must be a planet here. I just can't find it. You have to like prove that it's there. So the jury's out.
There's a bunch of questions. I know we're not going to get all of these today, guys, but thanks for all the good questions. Are there any ways ordinary amateur astronomers contribute to your work?
So, okay, so like ordinary people can contribute by calling their representatives and telling them to fund NASA. That's probably the most direct way. There are observing programs which use amateur astronomy data. So there's like a network of amateur astronomers around the globe that will get triggers and then they go look at it and they can collect like much more time comprehensive data than an astronomical telescope can do. So like something like the Hubble Space Telescope, it takes like 5 days for it to like change what it was going to look at and like slew to an interesting object. When LIGO detected the neutron star and neutron star mergers, like Hubble didn't get there until 5.5 days after the event happened. So whereas like an entire network of amateur astronomers were able to observe it as soon as the like source was identified, like the location, then we had coverage like the whole time. And so there's things like that where you can have these triggers of some transient event is what we call it. It could be a supernova, it could be a flare or something, and then an amateur can collect data on it and then upload it, and then that provides this like really beautiful set of very comprehensive information. So that I like have a couple of projects that are kind of in development that would do some of that transient work, but it's not my primary focus at the moment. But I would say like the best thing that amateurs can do is talk about space and the universe and backyard astronomy and like naked eye astronomy and to kind of be like ambassadors with the public about how important and valuable it is. Because you guys all know how important and valuable it is. And like the best way to talk to people about it is to really just have it be like a personal, heartfelt communication. So that in that sense, like the amateur astronomy community is sometimes much better at it than professional astronomers because it's really a passion that they have and they're not getting paid for it. It's just because they love it. And like when you talk to people, they can really tell that that's
Yeah,
what you're doing.
good answer. Um, I'll just wrap this one up. I can't get to the other ones. We don't have time, guys.
Yeah.
Thoughts on science communication on social media and the proposed TikTok bans?
So I think
We'll
I don't like
skirt
bands.
the razor edge on this
Yeah.
one. So,
I don't like bands of any kind. Like I post my videos on Instagram and TikTok and I'm sort of like platform agnostic, I guess. I think that the one of the things that I made this video asking people like what questions do they have about critical thinking, and one of the comments was like, how do you know what you're not being shown? And I feel like with social media algorithms, that's like a key thing that you can never really know unless you can make like I guess a different account and like switch between them. But it's really important to be like this what I'm seeing is just like a tiny slice of what I could see and
mhm.
kind of think about like what is the bias that introduces. So I feel like TikTok is interesting because it definitely has its own bias of what it shows you, but it's different than what Instagram would show you or what some other app would show you. So I think having the variety is good because then you have more like just a bigger window into what is going on. Um, I sort of like I have thought a lot about the Instagram algorithm and the TikTok algorithm because sometimes it seems like the algorithm is like, oh, I like this, and like the finger of the algorithm like points at it, and then lots of people see it, and then the finger is like, now we're gone somewhere else. And there's no like, I haven't been able to figure out like what is it. So I just am like, okay, well, I'll just have to like do things that I think are interesting, and sometimes it'll catch and sometimes it won't. And so for me and my posting, I feel like I just have to do stuff that I would want to watch and like it'll find the audience. And I think on a larger scale, like I would like a social media platform that was just like a random number generator almost. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
here's this random thing, and there's no like it's not trying to capture your attention. Of course, they would never make any money, so I guess it wouldn't go anywhere. But like all the algorithms are just designed to like keep your attention. And one of the other things I think about for critical thinking is like that attention is so valuable, and you have to train yourself to be more aware of like, what am I paying attention to? Can I pay attention to something else? Like, what am I not paying attention to by paying attention to this sadness box?
Mm-hmm. Sadness box. That's amazing. Copyrighted, all that. Put on that one. No, yeah, your phone is one of those where it's really a double-edged sword for everything. Where I mean, even I did an event last night for a group, and we're out under a decent sky, and we're looking at Saturn, and everyone's just pulling out their app, being like,
I'm like, oh, don't use the app. It ruins your night vision.
I was like, oh, yay, it's right. It's like, I'm right here. I do this for a living. Why would I lie to you? I drug this whole thing out here. So it just, but I get it. But everyone likes to experience the world through this. And I even try to tell my kids, it's like, everything you see there could be real. Like, rather than experiencing it through a screen, why don't you go experience it? Do you want to see a picture of it, or do you want to be like, oh, I went there?
Experience it IRL.
Yes. We're pretty much done with the hour. It flies by very very quickly. Oh, there's one question I'm getting beat up about. This could go very very long, so I'll let you compress it in any way.
Okay.
How do you think AI might benefit astronomy?
Okay, so astronomy has been using the term that I prefer is like machine learning of looking for patterns. So for astronomy, you have like a tremendous amount of data, like arrays, images with numbers in them, and data sets over time. And so what modern society calls an AI is a large language model, where it predicts based on like what the words are, like what should the next word be. And if you're dealing with numbers, it's kind of a different thing. So we call it machine learning. We've been using it for a while. I think that kind of predictive software is interesting only in as much as you can interpret what it puts out. So you have to, it's been helpful. It's helpful to pick out like signal from the noise, but then you still need a human to be like, now what does this mean? Or like, what law is happening here? What like effect is happening? We have these massive data sets that are only getting bigger, like all sky telescopes that will monitor what's happening. Every night, like there's a telescope that's coming online in South America that will create like an internet's worth of data every 3 days. And so that you need an automated algorithm that will be like, here's what's changing. This is different. This is different. We think this is a supernova. I think this is, some other tidal disruption event or something. So that type of like algorithm, I think, is really valuable to kind of focus the humans that will then actually interpret what is happening.
Yeah.
But I refuse to call it an AI because it has no intelligence. It's just a large model.
Yeah.
And also, I think a lot of them are a scam, but that's a separate thing.
Fight the power. So it's like, well, thank you so much for being on. It was really nice to see you again and get to really talk to you a little bit more one-on-one. If I'm ever in Tucson, I'll have to ping you and see what you guys are up to.
For sure.
Your Instagram, in case anybody wants to track you down, is what?
It's my name, Erika.Hamden at Erika.Hamden on Instagram. That's what I am on every platform, basically, on TikTok, on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on LinkedIn, if you want to be really bored.
Yes. I have one. It doesn't get used. I get the little hi messages all the time and stuff. So.
I'm like, LinkedIn. Anyway.
Yes.
If you're on LinkedIn, I love you. Like, more power to you.
Yes. Well, yeah, if you guys want to follow Erika, check her out on Instagram and all the usuals.
And I have a TV show on Arizona Public Media that I should I should promote. It's called New Frontiers. It's about science and discovery at the University of Arizona. We just had a new episode that came out on Tuesday, so check it out.
Can you catch those on YouTube as
Yeah,
well?
if you go to the AZPM website, you can watch it, and they're on YouTube also.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that are not here in the state, so I just want to make sure
Oh,
they
yeah.
can check it out. So, well, thank you so much. I hope you have a good rest of your Friday and great weekend. And for everyone watching, thank you so much. We will see you guys next Friday for our What's Up in the Sky episode. We're also pulling the Target of the Month winners. So if you've sent in your stuff, we'll be announcing the top 3 winners there. And yeah, so thank you very much, Erika. Thank you very much. And we'll see you guys next Friday.
Thanks for having me.
See you later. Bye, guys.